Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy!
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. So today I'm going to be reviewing the Acolyte episode 1. My sister and I just finished watching episode 1 and 2 of the Acolyte, which are the only two that have been dropped right now on Disney+. And boy, do I have a lot of thoughts, and my thoughts may actually surprise you given how much I've spoken out about the Acolyte and the morons that are in charge of this whole thing. So buckle up and let's get into this. Okay, so my honest thoughts on the first episode of the Acolyte was, when I first started watching it, we started it the other day, and then we stopped it, so I've watched it in pieces. My sister and I watched the second half of it today at once, so that's kind of fresh in my mind, and then we watched all of episode 2. So I first went into it really apprehensive because Leslie Headland and some of the actors, and there's been all kinds of controversy around a lot of comments they've made, and a lot of the comments that they've made has shown that they really don't know or understand Star Wars. It's very clear that they're woke and that they're shoving the LGBTQIA plus minus side divided by sign, all of that agenda, they're shoving it into Star Wars where it doesn't belong. And the wokeness is taking precedent over telling good stories, which is the case with Star Wars and a lot of other media content these days. So I went into it really apprehensive. I joked with my husband and my sister many times that I am having my critique glasses on and I am ready to just rip it apart and have so many different things that are wrong with it because I don't feel like they understand Star Wars. I'll have a link to the video, the Acolyte comments that an actor made that was actually really controversial, which the interviewer actually had some more controversial thoughts. I'll have that here. There was also something with Leslie and the main actress where they said R2-D2 is a lesbian, even though in canon he actually is him. I haven't heard any Star Wars fans talk about this in particular. The ones that have even commented on the controversial, how Leslie said that R2-D2 is a lesbian. None of the Star Wars fans have actually talked about how R2 is actually called he in canon several times. In episode 3, Anakin and Obi-Wan are talking in the elevator, and they start arguing about R2, and then Anakin's like, hey, no loose wire jokes, and Obi-Wan's like, did I say anything? I didn't say anything. And Anakin's like, he's trying, he referring to R2, and several times in the Clone Wars Anakin refers to R2 as a he several times anyway, so that's kind of a moronic statement. So I went into this thinking this was going to be a dumpster fire of a disaster. And I started watching it, and it was interesting. It opens up with this really long fight scene between this assassin character and this Jedi character, and the fight scene was actually really interesting and pretty entertaining. And as we were watching it, I'm actually really impressed with how many alien species they're actually showing. A lot of the Disney Star Wars content has actually been over too many humans, and there hasn't been a whole lot of alien creatures, and I felt like the creativity of a lot of Disney Star Wars is severely lacking because the planets are all the same. They're either sand or snow. There's not a whole lot of world building, planet building. There's not a whole lot of alien races, and it just doesn't feel like George Lucas's Star Wars in that aspect. And the race building, world building, the creativity level seems really flat. But in episode 1, there was a lot of alien species and a lot of the different scenes, and there was a lot of different creative stuff thrown in there in terms of aliens. So it was really interesting. We got to see Coruscant. The Acolyte takes place a couple hundred years before the Phantom Menace, so everything looks a little different. And I remember telling my sister in watching this, and even today, the first episode, when I first started watching it, I was so overly critical. I was waiting to see stuff that would break canon, and I was also watching it, and it doesn't feel like Star Wars. The first time that I watched the first bit before we stopped watching it the other day, it it didn't really feel like Star Wars to me. It came across as more fan fiction-y, and I don't know if it's because deep inside my head subconsciously, like, I know the creators and all the stupid statements they've made, or I can't really pinpoint exactly why I was feeling that way. But then today when we watched the second half of the episode, I was starting to feel like it doesn't feel like my Star Wars, but it feels like a different era, and I think I could come to accept that. And I was like, well, maybe, you know, when the fans of the originals first saw the prequels, I'm sure it felt that way too. It felt very different from what they had known. It felt like a different era of Star Wars, and it was supposed to be. And so I'm like, I can kind of see that with this. So we got to see the Jedi Temple. There was, I forget his name, but the main kind of Asian, Japan, I don't know if he's Japanese or what, but the main Asian Jedi Master guy, I forget his name, but he was teaching a bunch of younglings. I kind of really like him as a character. The main girl, apparently she's a twin sister. So the twin sister's the assassin. The good one was part of the Jedi until she came when she was 8 years old, and they did make a comment that she was too old, and then for whatever reason she got kicked out of the Jedi or left the Jedi and became a mechanic, which is actually kind of a cool concept, and they did a lot of mechanical stuff, so that was really neat. And so she's really good, and I like her character. And then there's this stupid idiot who said that Anakin blew up the Death Star, his actor. The character he plays, Yord, I actually really like Yord's character, which is ironic because his actor is a moron who doesn't know Star Wars. But Yord is like this stick in the mud. He's very rigid. He reminds me of Saito from the anime Hagoiki about the Shinsengumi, where they're very strict about the rules and follow the rules to a T, and they don't really have a lot of wiggle room for logical or practical decisions because everything is always about the rules. And I kind of like that style of character, and his dynamic with the Asian master, the Asian master's current Padawan, and then the good twin sister Osha. They have this really interesting team dynamic as they go to investigate the assassin, and at first everybody thinks it's Osha until the twin sister reveal happens. And then basically we get the story that her sister set the house on fire, and it killed Osha's entire family, and that's when she was taken to the Jedi Order, and everybody thought that the twin sister died, but she didn't. She lived, and now she's coming for revenge against 4 Jedi, including the Asian one. And so she's killed 2 of them, and she's on her, so I'm getting ahead of myself. So it kind of creates this mystery where they're going and investigating, and it's really, really fun. And to be honest, when I got finished with the first episode, I was actually wanting to keep watching, and it hooked me enough that I wanted to watch the second episode. So overall, I still couldn't pinpoint, for me, it doesn't feel like Star Wars, but then there's sometimes when it does, and it's really weird, and I don't know why. I feel very confused and conflicted about it, because it really does feel like a different era in Star Wars, and that's kind of what it's supposed to be. I mean, this is a different era of the Republic, which is a couple hundred years before the Phantom Menace, so it makes me really conflicted. But overall, I would say this one, the first half didn't catch my attention, because we started to watch it and we stopped watching it, and we didn't watch it for a couple days, and tonight we finished the second half. The second half caught my attention a lot when Osha got involved and she was arrested by the Jedi, and then they had a prisoner escape thing, and the Asian guy got involved, and I like her droid, Pip. There's always a cute little droid, so and then they kind of all teamed up to go find her, and she ended up on this planet Karlak, and I remember that from the Clone Wars, and we used to play this Clone Wars game called CWA, Clone Wars Adventures, so we spent a lot of time on Karlak in that game, so for me, Karlak was really cool to see. And she has this little force vision and stuff, which implied that her sister is alive. So it was really interesting, and again, it hooked me enough to make me want to watch the second episode. And so my thoughts are, I don't hate it. I really don't, and I hate that I don't hate it, because I'm looking for things to critique, and I have another thought in a minute, but my dog needs in, so I'll be right back. So I would say for me, the first episode is probably 3.5 to 4 stars. It was interesting, it was intriguing, nothing stood out to me as anything that was off or breaking canon. Right now they're referring to her as the Acolyte, or Jedi, like a Force user. And so I had a feeling that in order to keep from saying that, oh, the Sith are back, to break canon, because Ki-Adi-Mundi in episode 1 says that, well, the Sith have been extinct for millennium, they're kind of like, it kind of implies that she's just an assassin or a Force user, that sort of thing. So that was kind of predictable. And then there was one scene where whenever the good sister Osha is getting arrested by Yord refers to her family, that she lost her whole family, and he's like, your sister. So mothers was plural, implying she had a lesbian couple as her parents, which I didn't like, and I hated that, but it was a throwaway line, and so far there hasn't been anything else in episode 1 or 2 that I noticed that was really like that. So overall, I'm going to say 3.5 stars for me for the first episode, and it did hook me enough to keep watching episode 2, which is kind of the point. So we will see what happens. But in the meantime, what are your guys' thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Did you like it? Do you not like it? Was there anything that stood out to you as weird or off or breaking canon or not Star Wars? Like, do you guys feel like it feels like Star Wars to you, or do you not feel like it feels like Star Wars? Like, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments, because I genuinely want to know. And in the meantime, if you liked this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more writing and reading videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And in the meantime, if you liked my review of The Acolyte episode 1, then stay tuned and check out my review of episode 2, which will be up next week. Check it out. The video will be right here. I have a lot of thoughts on episode 2 and The Acolyte so far as a show, so check that out. You don't want to miss it.